Bedwars has a lot of maps, which is why sometimes it can be hard to choose which ones to play on. Today, I'm going to be giving my opinion on the best and worst Bedwars maps currently in rotation. Before we start, I would appreciate it if you liked this video and subscribed. It keeps me motivated to keep making new content. Alright, let's get into it. Alrighty, we are here in the first game on Inga. Just so you guys know, before we get into the tier list, my tier list has 5 different tiers. We have the S tier, A tier, B tier, C tier, and F tier. S tier being the best, and F tier being the worst, obviously. So getting right into it with the worst Bedwars maps ever. The first one I have on my list is Lightstone. Lightstone, right when it came out, I knew it would be one of my least favorite maps. It's just such a large map, and it has a really interesting structure. Because if you want to rush somebody right next to you, it doesn't take that many blocks, but if you want to rush somebody across the map, it takes like a stack and a half. Alright, the next map in the F tier, the lowest tier, is going to be Krogorm. Pretty similar reasons here, it's just such a large map, and it's pretty impractical. I think I'm just going to drop on this person's view and kill them. Cool. Another map going in the F tier is Acropolis. This map I don't like for a completely different reason. Yes, it is a larger map, but there's a reason why I really don't like it. And that's because in this map, there's actually an unfair advantage for which base you spawn in. If you spawn in one of the central bases, you'll automatically do better than one of the side bases, which is something that should not exist in a Bedwars map. And rounding out the F tier, we have Cascade. This is another new-ish map that's way too large and has a super flat middle with a bunch of holes that are just large enough where you can't run across them with no blocks, but just small enough that they only take like 2 blocks, which I find really weird and not very helpful. Alright, now making our way into the C tier. These maps aren't as bad as the F tier, but I would never willingly pick them. Now I'm actually going to mention 2 maps to start off the C tier just because they're so similar, and that's Siege and Orbit. The main issue with these maps is just how large they are. Yes, they are technically cycle maps, and I do like playing cycle maps, but their size just makes them unplayable. Another one in a similar boat, I guess, would also be Biohazard. The next map that I have on the C tier is going to be Toro. This map I just have never really had a liking for. Not only is it a large map, but it's also just not very fun to play in my opinion. It's really easy to get double rushed, and just I don't have a lot of good games on that map. Alrighty, that'll be a GG though. Alright, and then to finish out our C tiers, I have Ashfire. This map isn't actually terrible, aside from the fact that when you get down to you and one more person across the map from you, it becomes unbearable to play. But the issue is that happens every single game, so obviously that's a pretty big issue. Alright, that brings us into the B tiers. These are maps where if I queue them, I'm not mad about it and I'll play them, but they aren't in my favorites category. Starting it off with something that might be a little controversial, which is Speedway. I know that a lot of people like Speedway, but this map lacks a lot of depth in the islands. You can see like Airshow has a very high Y level difference between the top and bottom of the islands, but Speedway is just completely flat, making it almost impossible to pearl clutch and do some other things that make playing on it a little bit more fun. On to the next B tier map, which is Pernicious. Pernicious isn't a bad map by any means, it's just really easy to get double rushed, and that makes it kind of annoying. Alright, going into our next B tier map is Waterfall. Waterfall is a really pretty map, but there's a few issues that just doesn't quite take it to the A tier. One of the issues with Waterfall, I feel like, is its diamond gen placement. It's just kind of hard to access. And I feel like that's kind of the story with all the B tier maps, is that they're pretty good maps, they just kind of have one flaw. Same story goes with our next B tier map, which is Skyrise. Skyrise would be a really cool map if you could actually clutch further down on the buildings. I get that they need to put a bottom height limit, but that just makes it kind of annoying to clutch on. The The next map on the B tier is Crypt. This is a pretty slow generator, and it's not my favorite theme. I think it's kind of tired and difficult to grind on, so that's why it's on the B tier for me. That's followed by Rooted. This, on the other hand, I think has a very good theme. It just has a little bit of a wonky diamond gen configuration. And for my last map in the B tier is Apollo. This was reskinned for the holidays, I believe. I think it was called Nutcracker. This map has nice short rushes, and there's kind of like an intermediate island system that's pretty cool. Alright, and on to the A tiers. These are the maps that I really enjoy and are in my favorites, but they just don't quite have the wow factor of some of the S tier maps. Starting off with Orchestra. Orchestra is a great map, there's no question about it. It's a short rush, and it's a lot of fun to clutch on. I like the Emerald and Diamond Gen placements, and it's just a great map overall. And for the next map we have Gateway. I mostly play solos, but when I do play doubles, this is one of the best doubles maps by far. Another A tier map is the map that I'm currently playing, Airshow. Aside from the fact that it has pretty slow generators, I do really like this map, and I really enjoy the theme too. For my final A tier map, I have Glacier. Glacier has a pretty standard layout, but I really like Middle especially, and surprisingly I feel like this map has very few sweats on it, which was one of the reasons why I put it higher on the list. But overall it's just an amazing map. And finally, for the time you've all been waiting for, the 3 S tier maps. Now I do think these do kind of have a ranking for me, like I do like some of the maps more than others, so these are my top 3 Bedwars maps in general. Now for my number 3 map, I have Solus. Okay, well as I build this guy a little house, my number 3 map is Solus. It has a short rush, and it's just a great map in general. For my number 2 Bedwars map is Lighthouse. This is the map that you see used for like speedrunning and all that sort of thing, and it's for a reason. It's very quick rushes. The only downside is a lot of sweats do play on this map, because it's been around for a while. And finally, for my number 1 map is Inca. It came out somewhat recently, but Inca is just become one of my favorite maps. It has a great theme, good rushes, and great diamond and emerald generator placement. So yeah, Inca is my number 1 Bedwars map. And with that, I think it's finally time to kill the AFK kid. Alright, GG.